Hello friends, in today's session for Fundamentals of Management, we are going to talk about Centralization of Authority. I am Professor Asazani from IMS Ghaziabad University Courses Campus. So let's begin the concept by understanding the meaning of centralization. We can say that according to Allen, centralization is a systematic and consistent reservation of authority at central points in an organization, while decentralization refers to consistent and systematic delegation to the lowest level all authority except that which can be exercised only at the central points. Thus, centralization denotes that a majority of the decision making to do with the work being performed are not made by those doing the work but at a point higher in the organization. Everything that goes to increase the importance of the subordinate's role is decentralization. Everything which goes to reduce it is centralization. In other words, we can say that everything that goes to increase the subordinate's role is decentralization, whereas everything means concentration of right to take decisions with one or a few executives at the top level of the organization of the top management. They can't take decisions independently as in case of centralization. Thus, after understanding the meaning of centralization, we can say that the features that the features that can be associated with centralization are that reservation of decision making power at the top level, reservation of operating authority with the middle level managers. Thirdly, operations at the lower levels are closely regulated by the instructions from the top level. And lastly, there is a strict supervision and control over the operations of the lower levels by the top management. So let's move to the advantages and the disadvantages of centralization. As every aspect has as every concept has two aspects, positive and negative. So let's start discussing the positive impact of centralization. What is the need and centralized structure of organization may be preferred by top management because the first can be personal leadership. Personal leadership is important for the success of small enterprises. It is also important during the early stages of big enterprises. In both the cases, the operations are relatively on a small scale, and the top executives can concentrate entirely and the top executives can concentrate entire authority with himself. This will result in quick decisions and enterprising actions, which is essential for the success of the business. The second is uniformity of actions. Where a company wishes all its operative units to do the same things in the same way, there must be centralization of appropriate decision making. Only the top management having central authority to make decisions can bring uniformity of procedures by operative units. The third is integration. Certain degree of centralization of authority is necessary to unite and integrate the total operations of the enterprise. This is the coordination function of management. If the management has to perform this function better, it must reserve some authority with himself. Centralized control is needed to keep all the parts of the enterprise moving harmoniously towards the common goal. The fourth is handling emergencies. Centralization of decision making is essential when the business conditions are certain and when the business conditions are uncertain and there are changes that emergency conditions may develop to endanger the very existence of the company. Centralization will help in taking rational decisions from both short as well as long-term perspectives to meet such uncertainties. The fifth is utilizations of personnel. Centralized structure permits better utilization of highly qualified personnel, particularly in administrative and technical capabilities. The last is flexibility. Centralization permits greater flexibility in the utilization of existing personnels and facilities, and also in handling fluctuating volumes of the work. So this was all about the positive impact centralization of authority lays in the organization structure. Moving ahead to the disadvantages or the demerits of decentralization structure. Centralization of authority has the following demerits. Number one, there is delay in the decision making as decision making is not allowed at the lower levels. Secondly, centralization of authority increases the burden on the top managers and hampers the growth of the lower level managers. The third is the motivation and the morale of the lower level executives are very low because power is concentrated only on top management and only top management has the right to take decisions. Fourth, fortunes of the enterprise depend on the healthy and vitality of the top executives. Lastly, there is possibility of misuse of authority by the top executives. Because of the stated disadvantages, absolute centralization is not found in practice. Different organizations follow centralization in different degrees. It should be noted that complete decentralization is also not a feasible proportion for creating an effective organization structure. Hence, some authority must be reserved at the highest level of the management. Greater the reservation of authority at the top level, higher is the degree of centralization, and lower is the degree of decentralization, and vice versa. So, this was all about centralization of authority, its merits and demerits in terms of organization structure.